Well, good afternoon, and welcome to the Idahoan Show. Today I'd like to do a review of the Smith Wesson Model 629 44 Magnum. And I've actually got two of them here for you. This one with a 4-inch barrel, and this one with a 6-inch barrel. Now, if you've been following my channel, this may seem a little anticlimactic because I've used these guns in so many episodes that you're probably almost as familiar with them as I am. But I haven't posted a formal review of them yet, so that's what I'm doing today. Now, the Smith & Wesson revolver tends to be a little on the expensive side, but this is one case where you really do get what you pay for. You know, these are very high-quality guns. Most importantly, they're extremely reliable, unlike, for example, the TIS, as I've discussed in my review of the TIS 44 Magnum. They're also a little bit lighter. You handle a TIS and a Smith & Wesson next to each other in a gun store, and they seem like they're, about the same weight. The Smith might be just a little bit lighter. But if you actually wear them around in a holster all day, you find out that there's actually a bigger difference than you might suppose. The Smith is only a little bit lighter, but that makes a big difference in terms of how comfortable it is to wear around for an extended period of time. The weight also has a surprisingly big effect on recoil. And this really surprised me the first time I took the Smith to the range. Based on my experience with the TIS, I thought that shooting 44 Magnum was really no big deal, or the recoil wasn't really anything to be concerned about. So, I set up a paper target, loaded up with full power 44 Magnum loads, fired a few shots to see where the gun was hitting, adjusted the sights a little bit, then I set up some reactive steel targets, loaded up again, fired about 6 rounds in rapid succession, and then I noticed my thumb was stinging a little bit, so I looked down and there's blood all over the grip, and there's a flap of skin just kind of hanging off where the impact of the recoil had torn it loose. So the recoil of a Smith & Wesson 44 Magnum revolver is really something to be reckoned with. Now, since then I've made some adjustments to these grips, fine-tuned them for better ergonomics. And now I've gotten to the point where I can shoot maybe 18 to 20 rounds of full power 44 Magnum loads without endangering the tissues of my hand, so to speak. But even so, in practice, what I typically like to do is shoot the first 6 to 12 rounds full power Magnum loads, and then switch to either some real light hand loads or else go to 44 special ammunition. I found that shooting 44 special is a great way to pursue painless practice with a 44 Magnum like these Smith & Wesson Model 629s. While I'm on the subject of recoil, it seems like I've met a lot of people who think that a short-barreled revolver is going to kick worse than a gun with a longer barrel. And that's simply not true. If you've ever taken a physics class, you know that recoil arises because of conservation of momentum. And so, the higher the mass and the higher the velocity of your bullet as it leaves the gun, the more physical recoil the gun is going to have. Of course, the higher the mass of the gun and the more that force is spread out by the grip or the stock or whatever contacts your body, the less felt recoil it's going to have. But the thing is, especially with a Smith & Wesson with a relatively slender barrel, those extra 2 inches of barrel length do not add that much weight. And consequently, the higher bullet velocity from the longer barrel actually makes the recoil of this gun worse than the shorter barreled version. Now, what I've done here is actually put a fatter grip on this gun, and that allows me to distribute the force a little better on my hand, and consequently the recoil of these two, or I should say the felt recoil of these two, is now about the same now that I've customized the grips appropriately. But either way, if somebody tells you short-barreled guns kick worse, don't believe them. There's no science behind that. Now, one thing that I would like to mention about the Smith & Wesson revolver is, shooting this gun in cold weather when I'm wearing gloves has occasionally been a problem. The reason being that the hammer has a relatively large knurled surface on top, and it lies relatively close to the frame of the gun when it's cocked, and consequently it's relatively easy for it to catch on your glove And in some cases, when I pull the trigger, I've actually seen the hammer just stay back. It just catches on the glove and doesn't even fall. In other cases, the hammer falls, but because it partially catches against the glove, it loses some momentum, and so it doesn't have enough energy to set off the primer. And so you get a failure to fire, basically. That's the only reliability issue that I've ever had with these guns, and that's more a fault of the glove than the gun. These are very reliable guns, as I was saying. But that's definitely something you want to consider, is if you're going to be carrying a gun in cold weather, make sure that your gloves are compatible with the revolver, that they're not going to catch on the hammer and prevent it from doing its job. But other than that, these have been great guns. They're a lot of fun to shoot as long as you're using ammunition that's not going to tear too much flesh off your hands. And so without further ado, I think I'm going to set up some targets and go do a little shooting.
Ugh.